Good afternoon. I'm Richard Miller. I'm in Melbourne, to the northeast, in a wonderful country foresty setting. At least that's what I saw from the road. And I've had some really strong 2 weeks in Melbourne, and we're going strong at it again. And might as well just say hi. So help me welcome Kalyani Lawry. So hi Kalyani, thank you.
Hello Richard.
We're in your sitting room or your library here.
Mm-hmm. Certainly are.
So the way we met, I think all of you know Sailor Bob, right? And so then Bob said, have you talked to Kalyani? And I said, oh, I'm waiting to. And he hooked us up. So here we are. So you've known Bob some time, right?
Absolutely. First met Bob in 1974. Didn't really know him very well, but knew of him. And then we were at an ashram in India in 76 at the same time. He was there for quite a considerable period of time, probably something like 18 months. We were only there for a short period of time. So we reconnected then, and then...
So did you see Nisargadatta together?
No.
Was that the ashram or another one?
No, that was the ashram. It wasn't Nisargadatta. He didn't have an ashram. But Bob was talking about going to see Nisargadatta and actually said, let's all go. However, we headed south to Tiruvannamalai for Shivaratri. So it's quite auspicious that this conversation is taking place so close to
yeah, Shivaratri is just this weekend, or maybe Monday is the actual moon day, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe. I wonder if it's different because of the date line, because we always think of the States or India as another day, and we're down in Australia.
It's closer to India than America.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, and then we reconnected with Bob. We had seen him socially, but not contacted him socially, but been at a few events. So we're aware of him because there were some mutual friends. And then we reconnected with him about 6.5 years ago. And he's an amazing man. He's so incredibly clear, and his pointing is so remarkably direct. He doesn't talk about, he goes straight to that speaking that undercuts the conceptual. And if you go to Bob and listen and totally be present with what is being said, as he says, not just for the few. It's for everyone.
What? Say again, as he says, just for the few or not just for the few?
It's not just for the few. And one of the stories he tells is years ago, there'd be somebody who would have seen the truth and be in some remote village in India, let's say. And so only a few people, the villagers, would get to know about this. So it was a very small number of people who actually would have contact. But it's different now. People can fly on planes, there's the internet, there's book printing that gets distributed around the world. So it's actually quite easy now.
Well, you're an author, so then, what happens is we have the feel. Like I'm an author in a way of a video journal. So we just have the real strong feeler and energy to push this out, put it out,
Yeah.
see who will field it.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
So we've done our work, right? You've written your books, and you've managed some of Bob's work, and I just do my thing here. We're doing our work. We've
produced 3 videos of him, and I also edited and produced 4 CDs as well. So that's getting the word out.
Right.
So it's not just for the few. It's for any and all who care to really listen and explore and look for themselves.
So I was at Bob's 2 Sundays ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hearing the words, and I was hearing the direct words too. But also I was just admiring this man in his 80s. It's so beautiful.
It's
and
great.
His heart was just gleaming, and I was smiling from ear to ear, and the words were there, but I was almost not paying attention to him. I was just feeling this presence that was I mean, I could put it on him and say it was him, but it was emanating out of me just because I was seeing who he was, or I
There's
don't know
a recognition.
what.
You were recognizing. When the mirror is clear, then when you look in that mirror, so to speak, there's a recognition. So there's a recognition of your own spaciousness, your own immediacy. And Bob is a clear mirror. He's a clear vehicle. He's a clear presence. So tasting your own true nature is very simple around someone like that.
So then just as I had my experience and as I shared what I shared, then someone else will say, well, I went there and I didn't feel that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's both things are possible.
Yeah, that's right.
And so then maybe they walk away frustrated or say, well, what was that all about? Or, those were a lot of words. I don't know if I got it or not. Or marvel be if it was so easy as he says. It's right here, right now. Just,
Who knows?
Recognize that. Just recognize that, right?
Just recognize it.
And they say, yeah, but I'm not recognizing it. What do I do now?
It's that pristine nature that you've never been away from. There's this notion of journey. Somehow we're away from something and we need to get back to it. In actual fact, we've never been away from it. All that's happening is that there's a conceptualizing is taking place, thinking is taking place, and we move up into the thinking and try and look for that spaciousness from the mind. I mean, you can't, because this stuff is prior to mind.
It almost seems like it's our nature to analyze everything with our...
it's a habit.
With our inspector. Let's call it the inspector, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. The thinking function is fine because we use it for all sorts of stuff. It's a problem with the car. You've got to figure out what it is, why it's not going. It's blah, 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 or this or that. Or you want to bake a cake. I mean, everything we do, setting up all this equipment today, requires thinking. So thinking's not the problem. It's the identification with that thinking.
Well, I don't even know because, it required thinking. But now I don't really think too much. I just hook all this stuff up,
Yeah,
and it just it required one time.
Yeah. But the point is that, Richard, that thinking is not the problem. And Bob often talks about sometimes there is a lot of thinking taking place, a lot of chatter taking place. Other times it's absolutely clear, still, quiet. And the important thing he says is neither is preferable. It doesn't matter whether there's chatter or whether there is quiet, because that chatter and that quietness is all coming out of that awareness, that spaciousness. And the thinking is sometimes confused and imagined that it's a problem because there's a notion of a me that's identifying with that thinking. The me that thinks it is this or that, the me that wants things a certain way or doesn't want things a certain way. So there's a push and pull, and there's a drama. And the drama is the appropriation of whatever's arising, imagining somehow it emanates from a me. And it's all to do with a me. When you see that me thought is just another one of the thoughts that are dancing across.
It's the one that's always there, though, right? But I heard him say that too.
No.
Well, it's always there in another thought.
In a
and
thought.
me as a part of another thought.
In a thought. But prior to that thinking, what are you, Richard? Prior to that thinking, what are you? Have a look.
Well, I'm a silent space. It's just no comment. It's a no comment space, right?
What can you say?
Right. Well, I heard him say that too, and I was, not that I was taken aback, but I realized, okay, heard him say what? I heard him say that neither is preferable, because you just said that. You said, okay, maybe be real quiet, it may be real busy, and neither is preferable. And I think that's so important because we hear that a million times, but we don't really pick it up. We just say, no, silence is more important. And then we're on a striving trip. Of course, that's another thought. Silence is more important, right? Exactly. So that's why neither is more important, because the choice is actually the same noise.
And once we set up a division, once something is preferable over something else, as in the Hinsing Ming it says so perfectly, It's a disease of the mind. Because we're setting up something.
I don't know. You don't have to call it a disease, do you? Or do you have to?
Well, I don't call it that.
It's just a mechanism of the mind, right? It's the way it works.
Yeah, I'm just quoting the Hinsing Ming. Calls it the disease of the mind.
Oh, yeah, a dis-ease.
Yeah, a dis-ease.
Yeah. Yeah, like the mind is starting to jitter and wiggle, right? Saying, whoa, should I go left or right?
But it's that setting up of one thing against another.
Well, any preconception, anytime we have a vision or an image that's like a preconception, it could be this way, right? And anytime there's an image, no matter what you're doing, then there's kind of like a preference, I think.
Is there?
Well, when you have images, there's a judgment that once you see an image, you say, well, that's not here now already. I mean, that's just a recognition, right? So then if that's an image that you got a plus on, you'll say, well, it could be here. And if it's an image you have a minus on, you could say, oh, thank God it's not here. So then there's that automatic kind of capturing that's part of capturing the image, right?
Well, it's the nature of the thinking.
Yeah.
You know,
well
it's
said.
Like images come up, things that are recalled from the past, things are anticipated in the future, but the actuality of your being is ever present. You know, this is just memory. This is anticipation and projection. It's just story, and when that story, when we drop that attachment to the story, an attachment to this me notion that wants to get something, wants it to be in a certain way or doesn't want it to be in a certain way, there's an incredible freedom because you're living in the what is. What is what is. What is what's appearing, without judgment, without preference. It's simply what is. And there's a lot of energy is freed up. Yeah. Then you just deal with whatever is appearing, whatever is presiding, whatever is.
That's what I'm noticing, because like you said, images come up.
Yeah.
But then we have a belief that we should make something out of it. Oh, there's that image. I should weave that into my story, And then that's a choice, right? It just seems like automatic that an image came up. It's got to get woven into the story somehow. But I think you could just leave it up there and just say, oh, there goes an image. Oh, there goes another one.
Yeah.
And not weave it into any story or build anything around it or do anything with it, And then another one you'll do something with because something is happening now, no matter what.
Exactly. You'll be moved to do something.
10 of them you won't do something with, maybe. And then what is that tremendous energy you talked about? A tremendous energy is freed up. Well, that's a potential because any of those images could happen and none of them have to happen.
Well, what's happening is just what's happening.
Right.
Only ever what's happening. What can happen is story. What has happened is story.
Right.
It's imagination. Projection into the future. Where people often get very disappointed because there's an imagination, there's something they're anticipating, this thing's going to happen, this event, I'm going to be like this, or whatever the storyline might be. A lot of anticipation. And the event comes, or the whatever it might be, and there's a huge disappointment. They're really upset, they're terribly disappointed, because disappointment takes a lot of preparation. You've got to work really hard to be disappointed.
That's really a good statement. Disappointment takes preparation, guys. Disappointment takes a lot of preparation. Listen to this lady.
You can't spontaneously disappoint.
Huh?
You can't spontaneously disappoint.
Perfect. Yeah.
So you see the mechanism of the mind, the mechanism of the thinking. It's just a story machine, and that's where the drama lies.
Yeah.
That's where the psychological suffering lies.
It's just an old focus story, Is it the half full cup or the half empty, Disappointment's all in that, where you're going to focus.
What cup?
Yeah. Whatever, the cup of life.
Yeah.
So then, in India, I guess some traditions talk about Maya, and then we've translated that to be illusion. Mm-hmm. And then, not knowing exactly where that came from, somebody was saying, I don't know if this is the truth or what, that Shankara discovered that, oh my God, this world is an illusion. Somehow he discovered that whether it could just shift quickly or something like that, and we could just say, okay, well, let's say he's the first guy that kind of discovered that. It would be really big news, right? Whoa, just look, this world is illusion. So then it was said that he gave that message to his disciples. 3 of them just clicked right away with it. They just got it. The world is an illusion. They all saw it. But 5 didn't. So that statement, it worked sometimes, and it didn't work sometimes, and it didn't work other times. You know, and that's what you call the pure, pristine statement, right? The pristine pointing.
No statement is pristine, because by its very nature it's conceptual. So it's pristine in essence, but not as an actuality. Any statement, any pointer as such, points to, it's like a road sign. If it says, you know, Melbourne, this way, the sign is not Melbourne. And no matter how many of these road signs, you go all around, you know, the outskirts of Melbourne and collect these signs, no matter how many you've got, no matter how many times you look at it, you study it, you look at the size of the font, you measure them up, you know, you pranam to them, you incense around them, you enshrine them and what have you, there's still a sign, there's still a pointer. They're not the actuality of the city. And any of these things that are spoken about are purely pointers, and they are to get you to look beyond and where they're pointing to. You know, the word is not the thing. The pointer is not the thing. The pointer is only a suggestion, a hint. It alludes to.
Yeah, so there's an arrow on the pointer. Somehow you have to either go that way or look that way or put your attention that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a pointer is, I mean, everything's conceptual. I mean, the beautiful thing that Ramana Maharshi said, you know, you remove a concept with another concept. Now, this is one of his trotted out things. You have a thorn in your foot. So you go to the bush, you take a thorn, you pull the other thorn out, and you throw them both away. So you see what the pointer is pointing to, and then you chuck them away. Yeah. All concepts.
So he said you got a thorn in your foot, you get another thorn, you got a concept stuck in your head.
No, let's go back there.
Yeah.
You see, the thorn, removing the thorn, is a concept removing the conceptual.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So
in other words, he told us to get one thorn to remove the other thorn, but he didn't say exactly how to dig it out. And that's what people say, well, how do I do it? You know, is that a valid question or not? You know,
people to be a bit more intelligent than that.
Yeah, but we're not. We've proven that 1,000,000 times. We're not more intelligent, you know. Yeah, but so people are asking, well, how? And then you get into practices and stuff like that, right? How to work those thorns in a way that that other one can pop out. And that's what we're not willing to talk about, right? We're not willing to talk about that.
Surgical to me. Yeah. Well, you understand a pointer, of course, that it's pointing to.
Right.
You know, when, let's say, Nisargadatta says, go to the I am. Now, I think many people are familiar with that statement.
Right.
And certainly anyone who's read I Am That will have fallen across that numerous times. A lot of people read that and they go, I am, and they go to the I am. Oh yeah, okay, I've got to go to the I am, I am, I am, I am. I mean, it's absurd because it's not what's being stated. You know, the mind, the conceptual stuff has taken that on board, and it's making a story out of it and making more story on more story, which makes things more complicated. You know,
it's going in the wrong direction, right?
Yeah, well, we don't want this to be more complicated. Yeah. We're trying to undercut this stuff, this conceptual stuff.
Let's see, how do we do that? You know. So, but I'm not allowed to say how or what?
Well, it's not a question of how, but let's look at what's being pointed to. He says, go to the I am. Now, that sense of presence, that amness, that sense of presence is the first thing that arises before all of the me story comes up, right? So that I am is that primary, he calls it the primary concept. It's you wake in the morning and that just sense of coming into being as such is that primary concept. It's the beginning before the story overlay builds. And I mean, you wake up and you go, oh, I'm awake, I'm late, oh God, I was late. Whatever the story is, we just build that story and re-inhabit the character, the me character, that we imagine we are. And prior to that, going right back to that primary concept, which is just the spaciousness, this presence, this immediacy, that's all there is. Everything else is story over the top.
So go to the I am. Here I am sitting, you know, like I'm not too busy in the mind, and I'm hearing your words, and I'm kind of just feeling a spaciousness around here and maybe seeing part of my face in the peripheral vision. I sense Sam is in the room, and I sense he's probably pretty still. And I feel palpable, you know, because I can feel kind of like expanded chest and like breathing, opening and closing, without a lot of story, you know. Then these words come up, but they just kind of come out of the nowhere. But I mean, am I in the I am?
You can't be out of the I am.
Yeah.
No.
But go to the I am. He wouldn't have said go to the I am unless you can somehow be not at the I am. Why would he say go to the I am?
It's only where the attention is focused.
The attention, that's what I mean.
It's only where the attention is focused.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And our habit is to place our attention on the thought stream. Right? That is the habit.
Right, the
And that
interpretation seems
the thought
to be
stream is also
the key,
the me.
you know. We think the interpretation is the key to opening the experience, right?
And that thought stream, the me, is part of that thought stream. Because it appropriates, it takes, it imagines, it is the thought stream. So when he says go to that primary concept, it's undercutting, it's pulling that right back, dropping the story, dropping the sense of anyone else in the room or whatever is going on, or any sense in the body. It's just going back to that presence, reducing it right back to that presence, staying with that presence.
In a way, the emotion and the mood are also part of the thought stream, are they not?
Yeah, that's right.
But the sensation is actually something that's here. It might be caused in some way by the thought stream, but the sensation might be a tightness or something like that, or just a short-windedness or somehow, or expansiveness too. But that sensation is kind of like, people say it's present, right? Because here it is.
And it's all conceptual.
Yeah. It's got conceptual roots, but it is, even without a concept, it's here. It might dissipate without a concept, but I mean, I'd say it has conceptual roots.
Yeah.
Because if I feel like I'm oppressed, maybe I've got some kind of bodily sensation about that.
Yeah.
So then when Nisargadatta says go to the I am, is he just asking you to hang out there? Just kind of go there as often as you remember to do it? Or, I mean, let's just talk about the keys here, the pointings, and pick them apart a little bit and see what people can make of it.
When he saw his guru, he spent a very little amount of time around him, because he had his family, he had his his beadie shops and all this kind of stuff. And he said that every spare moment he would investigate the truth of what his guru told him. And his guru told him that he was that. And he took it at face value, like, okay, the guy's speaking the truth. Right. And every spare moment. So, okay, he was busy, he was working, he had all sorts of jobs and responsibilities, but when there was a moment where his mind wasn't engaged in some sort of arrangements or discussions or working out things or whatever was necessary for his business and home and what have you, he would go to that core of his being, that I amness. Because in the habit of going to that sense of presence, there's an undercutting of the conceptual. It's very important to see that the conceptual is an expression of that. It's not a problem. Quite often it's often interpreted somehow the thinking is a problem. It's not. It's only the wrong identification, identifying that thinking is in fact what we are. And it's not. What we are is that spaciousness, awareness, that consciousness, which you can never be away from. It's present, it's palpable, it's what animates everything that is appearing. And it's only the habit of focusing on the thinking stream, the thinking that somehow there's a me, somehow the thinking is happening to a me, and all of the stuff that embroiders itself from then. That's the only issue, and that issue creates a psychological suffering. And what we say is you can be free of that. Free of it. Absolutely free of it.
So one thing we're saying, we had said that the mind stream has feelings with it too. And the mind stream has, of course, ideas, and some of the ideas are grandiose. Feels like, oh, and I'm in it because it's a story of me. So I'm in this grandiose story, and I have these feelings. Maybe like, oh, tomorrow I'll feel joyous because I'll be on the beach or whatever. Or I'll be president of a company, or I'll be addressing a big crowd or something like that. So then, in a way, there's a mental component to life. If you focus on that, that can be made up pretty rich, right? It also can be made up pretty poor and be full of suffering and poor me, and I'm getting worse, and I'm being victimized, and all kinds of things. It can go both ways equally. But a lot of us are just I'd say, for a lot of our lives, let's say, I'm just going on my memory now, but I would kind of project that, okay? That's kind of like the playground that we're living in, that joy and that pain, right? And then something, when we drop that, it seems kind of void or vacant. And the feelings that are here naturally are more subtle, let's say. They're more subtle, but maybe they're richer even. And they don't depend on anything, right? It's kind of like a natural happiness, a natural joyfulness, a natural curiosity, a natural playfulness. These kind of things seem to be out the window when you got a whole bunch of schedules and a whole bunch of objectives and a whole bunch of appointments and stuff like that. Who's got time to play, right? And so then, why? In other words, I guess I'm kind of beating around the bush trying to say, well, why does our attention always go to our mind stream? And somehow I guess we have a belief that that's richer, and that here is just mundane. We're just sitting around, what's going on here anyhow?
Richard, it's just habit. It's a learned habit.
A habit?
It's a learned habit. It's like smoking cigarettes or anything else. It's just a learned habit. Simple as that.
So then we got to make a new habit, right?
We don't have to change the dream. You can't alter the dream. You can't change.
Yep, the dream does alter, right? Over my life, I would say the dream is altered. Now, whether I did it or not, I don't know, but...
Your concepts have changed.
Huh?
Your concepts have changed. The interpretation has changed.
Well, I just feel easier. I think my life is easier than it used to be.
Yeah.
I'm traveling light.
Yep.
I think that's evident, Now you could just say things don't change, or you just keep going in a circle, and the same thoughts don't come up that used to come up. So then something changed now. I don't have to take authorship of that, but it seems to be that I can recognize it, and that's all a memory, of course.
Yeah. But if you're a lot of baggage you're carrying around a lot of conceptual baggage, it's going to be heavier than if you've got less conceptual baggage. But the whole key to this is, it's not about solving a problem. The appearance, the appearing, the manifestation is manifestation. It's not the job to go and alter anything, to go and fix anything up, to twiddle with the dials and try to improve. The job is just to see as it is, to see it for what it is, to see the truth of the matter. And
aren't we twiddling with the dials anyhow? It's almost just like thoughts. You said we're thinking anyhow, so the thought stream's happening anyhow. We're twiddling with the dials anyhow, and you said that the key is not to identify with twiddling the dials.
But who is doing the thinking? Have a look. Locate the you that is doing the thinking. Is that separate from the thinking?
that's another thought.
Yeah.
It's a whole stream of thoughts. The who that's doing the thinking.
Yeah.
So it's not separate from the thinking. And that's a good way to say it, is that separate from the thinking? Because if you just stop at saying who, then everybody kind of just goes, whoa, that's a deep question. But if you say, is it separate from the thinking, then you can realize that it is not separate from the thinking.
Precisely.
Yeah. So then where are you? You can project into nothingness, there's nothing here, or what?
But projecting ahead or recalling past is still just thinking stuff. It's mental activity.
Yeah.
And what you are is prior to that. You see, this habit of thinking that we can work it out, that if we can just get the right kind of construction, then it can all be sorted out. What we're saying is you're prior to that thinking. And undercutting that conceptual overlay that habitually we've put our attention into brings about a real taste of your true nature. And that true nature is not to do with a true nature located in a particular skin and bones as such. There is no boundary, absolutely no boundary. You are that totality, not divided, not separate, not cut off, not a part of. You are that lock, stock and barrel as such. And in tasting your true nature, there's never a confusion again, because you know what you are. You don't think what you are. You haven't worked it out. You haven't sort of sensed it. You know.
See, we're saying like
There's
with
a
Bob
knowing.
and with a certain amount of people, it hits really strong and they know what they are. But other people, I think maybe me, I'm looking for the same kind of an experience. And I don't think I'll ever, and that's my confusion. I think I'll get an experience. Okay, you say, who is looking? Who is having those thoughts? Is it separate from the thinking? Then you find like you could draw a blank, right? Then all this other stuff that I am everybody, I am space, I am oneness, all that stuff is like, is the logical extension, It's not really anything that you touch in the same way, because now we're out of that context. We're out of that context of having a mental image about it. We're in no image land, right? And so then when you say, okay, you're that total spaciousness, you're everything, that's a kind of an imagey way to talk about no image, I don't think you're going to get any kind of images there. So then you have to just say that you're not going to find out. You're not going to really find out in the same context that you're asking the question. And then I don't know how that becomes so solid with some people. Some people like Bob is so solid.
So how is it for you, Richard?
Well, I'm comfortable with where I am. And, sometimes I have thoughts and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I feel spacious and sometimes I don't. And I'm not really seeking anything different. Actually, if anything, I just want to settle more into what's here now for me. What's here now for me. And it's totally open. There's no restrictions on what's here now for me, whether there's a thought, whether there's a feeling, whether there's emotion, whether there's a space, whether there's a big-heartedness or a small-heartedness. And I don't feel like any kind of restriction would be beneficial for any reason, right? So then the preconception of how it's supposed to be, it all broke. All those preconceptions broke down.
Yep.
And then this is it for now.
That's all there is.
That's all there is, right?
That's all there is.
How about for you? How is it for you?
Well, there is only this immediacy. It's as simple as that. Thoughts arise, thoughts subside. Does it matter? It doesn't matter. It doesn't not matter.
You don't really get going with any of them, right? And
well,
once in a while you do, and once in a while you don't, right?
If going needs to happen because of something that has to take place, then that happens. But the key thing is seeing that there is actually no entity doing it. It's simply arising. And to take credit, or the opposite to credit, whatever it might be, blame, is more fiction.
Right.
So just as we don't take credit for the breathing or for the blood circulating, You know, these things are just all happening of their own, intelligently.
So then the only thing you could say is it's an honor to be chosen to act this part in the play, right? You just feel honored.
That's a fiction too.
Uh,
That's a fiction too, to locate in that way. You know, Bob often uses this, says this these few words, and it sums it up very well. He says, I'm not speaking to anybody. I'm not speaking to any mind. I'm speaking to that I am, to that presence, that immediacy. So there's no one speaking to another one. That's the fact of the matter. That's why this business of putting messengers on pedestals, you know, teachers and gurus and what have you, creates a problem, because then the projection is focused on the teacher as something special, and they're a messenger.
Well, I mean, isn't that messenger just another thorn?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the thorn is helping getting a few thorns out, and then we'll see what happens when we feel that.
The key is what has been spoken about. So it's the message, not the messenger. Yeah. And it doesn't matter who says it or where it's said. It's that clear hearing and tasting and recognising that for ourselves.
Isn't that just another method? You know, in other words, bhakti gets people on pedestals, right? And then somehow, I don't know it that much, but I've been around it and seen it a couple times. The yoga of devotion type thing. And somehow that pointing of who is thinking this, who is saying this, who is, you know, that kind of dissolves. Okay, instead of that, the other thorn is it's the master doing this, it's the master feeling this, right? This is the master's love. Or
yeah, but you know, it's problematic. It gets caught in, it's duality.
Yeah.
And it gets caught because there's projection of other.
Right.
This person has it, therefore the opposite to that has to be
I don't have it, right?
Yeah. And it's a bind. It's a bind, and it locks, and it's a trap. And it's a trap for both the teacher and the student. Both are locked in this dance.
Well, I think anytime you say I'm a teacher, you're locked, you know, because then then everybody's expecting you to come up with something brilliant, right? And then you got to somehow. And
if you're a devotee, you're locked.
Yeah.
Because a devotee needs something to be devoted to.
Right. But I mean, we all need, well, in a way, we all need something to be devoted to, just the existence, you know, just the life, just the planet Earth. I mean, we can certainly feel grateful and feel in love, right? And then, okay, I'm just in love, but there's no object of my devotion, you know. I don't love the tree, I don't love the mountain, I don't love the river, you know. I don't want to attach to anything. So I disattach with everything, but I mean, it's the same thing as loving everything, isn't it?
And St. Catherine of Siena said it so beautifully. She said, everything comes from love. Yeah. Loving to be, Satchidananda. Yeah. This appearance. It's like loving to be, loving to express. Just this whole manifestation arising. No reason. Just arising. Loving to be. Simply loving to be. And that love is palpable. You know, that's what we are. We're love. Simple as that.
Yeah, we're the love that's palpable too, which is not pristine, right? It's got all kinds of...
Has it?
Makes you want to kind of hug and stuff, you know, and pucker up. I want to kiss that person. Maybe that's just biology, right? But I mean, you know, anything. It makes you want to pet the cat.
Yeah, but you see it. You just see it all around you. Everywhere.
In a way, we're saying everything is the emanation, right? So everything is included. Right?
Nothing's excluded.
Nothing's excluded.
Everything is that. Everything is that.
So then I just heard it lately, just put it in a certain way, because, when talking about, when giving pointings, let's say, we could call it levels or something. But anyhow, we started to say A statement, B statement, and G statement. A, B, and G. Okay, what are they? A statement is like what is, for me, which might be just like feeling constricted or contracted, or I'm short of breath, because they're kind of like isnesses. And then you can go a little farther and say it's because that person did this, and then there's story in it, so that's a little bit farther away. Then a B statement was used to give a suggestion to the person, like that, even this I can, it's kind of like an affirmation or something like that, whatever the use of that is. An affirmation saying that I'm capable of doing my best at work and in the face of some people that don't understand me. It might be an affirmation. A G statement was like a great statement, or a statement from the scriptures, which was, we're all one anyhow. Or, they're the pointings, or the pure, pristine pointings, right? And so then all three of these, in a way, are the same emanation. We're just saying each one is useful when it's useful, right? Yeah. And then we don't necessarily have to say we only like G statements because they go right to the point, I mean, if they gloss over certain people and they aren't able to hook into them, or it doesn't make a difference. If you say this is the oneness to me, I'm just saying, well, that should be a discovery, not the way to start off an inquiry, but that should be what you discover at the end of the inquiry. I mean, all the G statements should be discoveries, not only scriptural. That's what I'm thinking. And then they're powerful, because then they're owned. But if they're just coming out of a scripture and saying, oh, swallow this, so Jesus said that the meek shall inherit the earth. And then you say, oh, well, I don't understand exactly how that would work, but okay, let me try it. Something like that, But if you discovered through a meekness, whatever that is, that the earth is yours in a way that you get to love it all, whatever that, I don't think he's talking about possession, but I mean, okay. So then I'm just saying, well, let's let all these statements be useful where they're useful. They're all emanating out of the one. Is that good?
Well, what are all the statements? What are they? Where do they come from? What are they? They're all that. It's all the awareness. And if a statement arises, or an insight arises, then an insight's arising. I mean, something might be going on, there might be some sort of prattling on in the thinking that there's attention's going into, and maybe this is some sort of emotional thing getting stirred or whatever, and then maybe the thought comes up, stop. Oh, hang on. Into that conceptual stuff being caught in the stream, blah, 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 stop. It's an insight that comes up. It's self-correcting. Because this is intelligence, energy. It's all...
Yeah, the insight is what I would call a discovery. Because, okay, it's said from the outside for a while, but then when we discover it, and it seems internal, like an insight, oh, gee, there that stuff is again. Do I really need this anymore? I mean, I don't know. I've done that round a lot.
Yeah, that's an intelligence energy. I mean, you get a taste of this, and then in a sense it looks after itself. If there's the habit of, falling into the old habits of conceptual whatever might be coming up, it's seen. And those habits become less and less. So in the end, something arises, and it's just arising. It doesn't have that bite. It doesn't nip. It doesn't create any grip. It's like arises and it's there, and there's no identification with it. The whole key of this, Richard, of course, as we've spoken about before, you were saying, is that this notion of a me, that this stuff is happening to a me, or these thoughts are coming from a me. And they're simply thoughts arising. And the thought, the construction, the notion of me as an identity, again, is purely a thought.
Yeah, I just got a good glass, you know. I just really had an insight, because I remember a little bit before, and I was referring to something Bob said and what you said also about whether there's noise or whether there's peace.
Yeah.
Really doesn't matter, right? It's just more noise, really. In a way, it's just another choice if you're making that choice. Okay, now we're saying the thought of the me is problematic in some way, because like that's where all the hooks are, right? And then I'm saying like, oh wow, the thought of a no me is the same as the thought of a me.
Precisely.
And nobody's ever said that, I know. Not to me, at least.
Because it's another thought.
Yeah, the thought of a no me. Forget no me, you know. That's not what we're saying, right?
It's saying that me or no me is just a thought.
Yeah.
Arising in the spaciousness. It's as simple as that.
Right.
And it's only this identification, this habit of wanting to own the thoughts and imagining that they're mine and that we want to keep them and keep them moving. When you see that any of this stuff is purely conceptual, it's just arising, it doesn't hold, it doesn't bite. It's purely arising.
Yeah. So if they're not mine, I don't have to do anything with them. I don't have to store them. I don't have to build on them.
But you never had to anyway.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
never
well, I
had
thought
to
I
anyway.
did, though.
You thought you did, that's all.
You know, but that's the me we're talking about, right? That thought that.
The me thought.
Yeah, the
Not
me thought.
The me, it's the me thought. Because there is no, I mean, you hear the catchphrase, there is no me and so forth. And there is no entity as such that is separate. And if you look around, just look, there is no separation in the seeing. There is one seeing.
Well, in a way, that's a G thought for me, you know.
Yeah.
That's a great thought.
Yeah.
And if it hooks, it hooks. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Mm.
But I mean, at least I think of separation as like skin, you know, or boundaries or something. But I don't know. I mean, I don't get too much out of that one. But I don't get put off by it either.
So the subtle notion of boundary is still a subtle notion. If you come back, undercut that thinking, undercut that sense of where you imagine you end and where the not you begins, undercut that. There is no division. You know, it's a subtle conceptual thing that keeps this sense of body and mind alive as thought.
Okay, if there's no division, but there is coming and going, right?
In the
whole
appearance.
Manavist royal comes and goes, right?
In the appearance, exactly.
And it comes and goes in parts too, because like we're together and now we're going to be apart pretty soon, right? So then, in that sense,
and
is that a separation, or is that we come together and we go apart? So then that could be determined as a separation.
There's
or somehow.
two kind of conversations we can have. We can have a conversation in the appearance, where we can say, you know, that's a chair, this is that, what have you. We can talk about time. We can say, well, it's, you know, whatever o'clock it is, and it's going to be 6 o'clock's going to come later, and 2 o'clock was earlier. We can do all that kind of stuff. Absolutely fine in the appearance, because that's the functioning that takes place. And there's no problem in all of that. There's no problem with thinking. There's no problem with the sense of duality that arises. There's no problem with the sense of a notion of a me. You know, you open your wallet, you've got your credit card, you've got your license, there's an identity thing. Fine, no problems with any of that. That is in the appearance, right? The actuality is, all of that is conceptual. Without a thought, any of that stuff that we imagine is solid and real in the appearance simply dissolves. It simply dissolves. You know, even the senses, the 5 senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, tasting, they seem to be 5 separate senses. You know, we talk about the seeing, we think we're seeing, we listen to sound, we taste, and so forth. Yet, in undercutting that subtle sense of dividing, there is only one perceiving as such. And when that conceptual thought structure that builds this notion of a me, builds this notion of something solid, pulls back, there is only perceiving, not perceiving anything, and there is no division. There is no telling whether something is being seen, tasted, heard, or whatever. There is just only oneness. And that's the actuality. Anything else is habitual, it's learnt, it's a conceptual overlay. And it's not a problem. There's no problem with the conceptual. The issue is imagining that that's real, and the imaginary me is real, and the suffering that then brings about. So nothing needs to be changed, as Nisargadatta said. The dream's a dream. You don't have to do anything. There's no altering. Nothing has to be done. He said either like all of it, love all of it, or love none of it. He didn't say love it all or hate it all. He said love it all or love none of it. It doesn't matter either way. It doesn't matter. It doesn't not matter. Simply see it for what it is. That's all that needs to be done. It's all that needs to be done.
Very nice what you said there, you know, because I was trying it out as you were saying it, about the division between hearing, seeing, tasting, feeling. And really that is just somehow picking all those things apart, the perception. In other words, all those attributes are there.
Yeah.
Just as part of what's being perceived.
Yes.
They're all there at once, you know,
Yes.
and then you can say, oh no, that's hearing, oh no, that's seeing. But that's later, that's an overlay.
Yeah.
Really clearly, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was really cool, you know. I think people will like that, and you can just try it, because I was just trying it. I mean, you probably did anyhow. And I noticed that. But my mind balks sometimes when you say, oh, there's no difference between a chair and a table, and then it seems like in order to get to where we're going, whatever that is, or to have the experience, or to, you know, there's a big denial concept, and we got to deny the appearance, you know. A lot of people are jumping on that wagon, you know, and I don't think that's what we're saying at all. That
absolutely.
There's no denial involved.
Because the appearance is that expressing, you know. It's that expressing and appearing. To say that something, to deny something, or to say that it's a problem, is absurd. Because it is absolutely perfect. And I'll come back to the 5 senses too, because adding a little to that may be very helpful also to people who'll be watching this. And it's an old Dzogchen practice as such. And Bob often speaks about it. And he says, the problem is that we're so focused on the thinking that we miss the actuality. And he says, those 5 senses, the seeing, the hearing, the smelling, the tasting, and the touching. It's not just fingers, it's like the whole sensation, the breathing, feeling your body breathing and sitting and whatever it might be doing. Keeping all of those senses equally balanced with thinking. It puts the thinking in its right perspective. Because we're like this, you know, out of balance thing that has all of this thinking that we're focusing on. And when those 5 senses are equally balanced, draw the attention to those 5 senses equally balanced, it just pulls that attention out of the conceptual. And it's a very good pointer.
So what does he mean? Does he mean all the 5 senses should be balanced with the thinking, like equal legs? Or does he mean that the thinking should be only 1/5 or 1/6? Like,
Oh, it's beautiful, Richard, what the thinking can do. Oh, we're chopping up water here, I can see. It's like when the thinking's running amok, we're caught up in this me thing, just bring the attention back to the five senses. Simple as that.
Yeah.
It's just very practical. Otherwise, it's a story. It's a thing. You've got to collect it and you've got to do something with it. And what do you do something with it? 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock and 10 o'clock at night. I mean, it goes mad. It's just like when it's noticed, it comes up of its own accord. Whatever. But for those who have, a lot of chatter, that can be very useful. This stuff is so immediate. And I know there's a lot of catchphrases around in the whole non-duality speak. And it's one of the problems is how do you speak about something that essentially you can't speak about? And yet, there is only immediacy. This immediacy prior to the embroidery of the thinking that we habitually overlay. So if you're just really present to what is right now, because it's all there ever is right now. Anything else is just thought. And whatever's arising, if we're imagining, am I doing immediacy properly? Am I being immediate enough? Is this right? Is this how you do it? More conceptual stuff. Don't battle with it. Just see how it is. Just see that it's arising. It's arising, it's bubbling. It's arising, it's bubbling. And just let it go. It's like passing traffic. This immediacy is all there is. It's like being present to. It's a very, very full space.
So we just can go back to noticing the five senses.
But if you want it.
Well, you would notice them. With immediacy, they would be noticed, right?
No. That immediacy, nothing is noticed. There is no thing. No thing is being sent. No thing is being focused on. There is only immediacy. Any notion, any concept simply dissolves. There is only oneness. And oneness prior to thinking. Yeah. They give it to you in one sentence. They say, the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. And what are they saying? They're saying that spaciousness, that awareness, prior to the conceptual stream. No, it's not rocket science. It's only habit. The thinking stuff is only habit. So you just simply be. Because that's all that's happening anyway. It's just, we're watching. It's like those, TV programs when they have the chatter that goes under the screen. They have the stock exchange or whatever it might be. It's like, don't watch the stock exchange stuff. Don't watch that thing. That's what you are.
I can see that habit. And I can kind of sense that the temptation is somehow the belief that something's important down in there. I better pick it apart and just check it out. And so then that probably comes out of some idea that something's missing.
It's just habit, Richard. Don't even bother trying to figure it out. Just have it.
Yeah.
But let the habit go too, because that's just a thought.
Well, it's a lot easier to let go, for me at least, when I say, oh, gee, what is missing? And then realize there's not much missing. So then, whatever that is down there, that interest kind of evaporates. And so then the inquiry it's not so much who am I or what am I or who is it that's having these thoughts, but it's more like, what is this interest that I think I have in something else but this?
And they're just thoughts arising and subsiding.
Just an inquiry.
Yeah.
Just like any inquiry is a thought.
Yeah. Quite simple. It's so simple that it gets missed.
Someone in an ashram asked a question, he said, when you read someone like Nisargadatta, they say everything is here and now, right here. And yet we're doing a lot of practices and work in this ashram. Could it be that just by changing my attitude, that I would just know who I am right now? And somehow, the answer was that's the great perplexity, that it's right here, right now, yet we're working as hard as we can, I would say that it could be looked at as a perplexity or like a paradox, but I could say that it would also be a good idea just to shift your attitude too. Shift that habit, right?
See, the story about labeling something as difficult or hard or a paradox or something or other else, I mean, it's fine, but it's not going to help. Just tasting what you are. It's all there is to do.
Maybe you just have to realize the sharpness of that second thorn and say, oh, that's a thorn too. And then when that one goes.
But you see, we've never been away from what we are. There is really nothing to attain or find, because it is absolutely perfect and present in this immediacy, right now. Just come back to where you are, which is right here. It's always been here. It always is here. There's nowhere else. Where can else be?
So that's the total grace of it. If we had to go on a long journey and climb a lot of mountains, well, then it would take a lot of training. But the total grace is, as you say, you've never been away from it.
It's the grace you've never left. It's the grace that you are. Satchidananda. Existence, consciousness, bliss.
So you've even written some pointers about just to notice, to help notice.
Yeah.
So how did that go? What was the stimulus to write that book?
Well, it came as an idea. And an idea with a bit of energy behind it. And so we had a couple of conversations with Bob. We said, yeah, okay. He didn't care either way.
I'll show it. It's Only That by Kalyani Lawry. So that's about Bob. And?
So it's a collection of many interviews which were done over a period of time with Bob and with his wife Barbara. A lot of interview material, private interviews, and then going through many recorded, lots of recorded material. I mean, there's just basically years of work and rewriting. Because it is not only the first part is a biography, but it also contains all his teachings. There's not much point writing a story about a bloke. You know, I mean, so what? What good's that going to do? It was a way of demonstrating the teachings in a fairly simple and straightforward manner. That was what the aim was. And then the dialogue, some of those dialogues I think, have come up very well. And I get numerous emails from people, and there's been some wonderful reviews. Jerry Katz reviewed it. He was very generous in his review, and a number of people have reviewed it around the world, and they say there's the dialogues just go right to the heart. They're exquisite. So if that's how it is, then if it gets the job done, well, it gets the job done.
I haven't had a chance to look at to see and to read it, but I feel like I can really thank you for the efforts and the discrimination you put into it, and just for making that available.
Well, you know, it's simply, I mean, okay, there's a lot of, when you write something, there's a lot of work involved, and yet there was such a force, you know, there was like compelled to do that writing. And it was an extraordinary journey with Bob. And I took one of the manuscripts down at one point and read it to Bob and to Barbara, and he was just beautiful. The tears went down his face. It was just exquisite. And I knew the writing was getting close, you know, that recognition. And I wrote it because he's been so incredibly generous, and he's generous with everybody. And I attempt to also pass on this message. If anyone's open to it, then I speak about it. We run intensives, various other things, groups, so forth.
Yeah, I feel his generosity. I mean, he set me up to speak with you.
He's a wonderful man. Very big-hearted. Yeah.
Like when you said there's such an incredible force to write this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when sometimes we give these pointings, people, I think there's an interpretation that it means we're gonna do these pointings, or shift our attention as these pointings say, or that actually we're gonna do something. And you're in a way saying there was such an incredible force to write this book. It's kind of like it just happens.
Well,
and like,
but we experience this in our daily life. You wake up in the morning, you get out of bed. Why don't you stay there all day?
Unfortunately, laying around feels uncomfortable.
But you're compelled, you know.
Yeah, you're compelled.
You're moved to do something. That's the same thing. It's just the normal stuff of the living, of how we get to do things, seemingly. You know, things take us. The energy takes us. And when that me constellation of thoughts doesn't have all that kind of energy in it,
gets thinner and thinner, right? Can you say that?
Exactly. And then who knows what's possible?
Right.
Yeah.
What seemed impossible, then you say, you'll give a little yes. And then when that seems like, oh, that wasn't so bad, you'll give a little bigger yes, right? And then all of a sudden you're writing books and producing DVDs and doing things you never thought you would.
Yeah, absolutely. If you asked me 10 years ago, I would have gone, what are you talking about? But you know, but this is how it is. This is how it is, you know, in the living as such. You know, things manifest, things come about. There's nothing magical about that.
So you wouldn't even use that as part of the pointing, like to engage or get involved or to, you know, try out a little yes, or, I mean, it just happens anyhow, right? So you don't really have to say any of that.
In what sense?
Well, like, I mean, sometimes we think that we're private people and that we can work everything out in our closet or in our meditation room. But somehow we are a web of people or a network or even oneness. I mean, some people say, I mean, so then engagement or just being involved every once in a while somehow lets that unfold. Expression, you know, because I mean, we don't talk too much about expression in non-duality. You know, somehow we realize something, and then do we express it, or do we just tell ourselves, or do we just say nobody understands in my family, or I mean,
everything is constantly expressing.
Yeah.
You know, this whole manifestation, what is it? It's an expression. It's expressing, constantly expressing. And if we feel moved to say something, we say something. If we feel not moved to say something, then we don't say something. It's like, it's whatever. You know, this habit of getting so entangled in the thinking, you know, it's one of those habits.
Yeah.
The me thing thinks...
Okay, but I mean, an inquiry is a thinking, right? And it's a feeling and a seeing. But I mean, you could say that you're entangled in the habit of not expressing.
Yeah, but that's conceptual.
Yeah, but if you're not expressing, you're entangled in the habit of not expressing, and that's conceptual, and you keep your trap shut.
And
so then you die.
Oh, what can you say?
Get a life. I could say, get a life.
It's a great story, Richard. Yeah.
I got a bunch of DVDs on my lap, so I'll show a couple of them. Pointers on non-duality. Are these in any chronological order, or
no?
Non-duality, one without a second. And then Sailor Bob Adamson, you are the essence. So Kalyani, thanks so much for all the great work you're doing.
Thank you, Richard, for all your good work you're doing.
Yeah, I feel that thanks, from a lot of different angles.
Yeah.
And it's very rewarding and enriching. And I would call that expression, so then I would say, give it a try, everybody. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Thank you for this time with you.
And thank you very much, Richard. It's a pleasure.
And thanks everybody for watching and following our Australian tour. So we'll be catching some more of Bob Adamson, so we'll see what Sailor Bob has to say. And see you next time.